Yes, you can hear me loud and clear. Yeah, I know the camera is good at fixing that. Can you quickly fix?
Spotlight.
Alright, well, the camera team is fixing that. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining today. We have a very exciting webinar coming up for you. It's a very interesting topic with a very interesting person. Besides that, this is pretty much going to be our last webinar in a few months. So there's that as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Without further ado, let me actually get Varun on stage. Can you get Varun on stage? Can you mute that microphone? I don't really speaking up this microphone.
It picks up the. Okay.
What happened to my hair? Hi guys. How's it going? Good. What have you been up to? Usual, man. Sunday, so thought I will spend some time. Another scratch pad session. Yeah. So basically, for the audience listening in, one of the things I've been doing these days is I've been doing sort of an advanced series, just completely free, just trying stuff out, where I'm just trying unique stuff at the intersection of technology and behavior. I spend most of my week working on EOS, the company that I run, just scaling that. We have 500 plus employees, and I'm spending some time on a game that we're working on. So those are two things that I'm spending a lot of my time on. But this third thing is just writing down interesting ideas at the intersection of technology and behavior. I usually make YouTube videos on it. Some I don't. So maybe like 5. Let me just remove this blur 1 second, please. Annoying blur is there. Yeah. Better. So I usually do these sessions on my YouTube, but some I don't do. And the useful part about the 100x engineers session is I can come do it, see how the audience reacts to it, and then decide should I do a full session out of it or not. So that's why I'm here. I hope my audio and all is fine, but I would love to know. I'd love to know what the chat is up to and what you guys are looking forward to, so I can tailor make the session for you. So it's essentially like a preview on what's to come out in your public space. Interesting. I'm just opening the chat 1 second. Cool. Just give me a second. Let me just see if I can switch my mic. Yeah, my mic should be fine. Yeah. Awesome. You guys ready for the session? Yes, you all are lab rats, and see, it's less about being lab rats. Actually, I'm the lab rat here because I'm trying to see if the session is useful, if it resonates, if you guys like it, and if it strikes you. I'm just trying to do unorthodox ways of thinking at the intersection of technology and human behavior, and I'm just seeing if it's useful to people who are also watching. Give me a second. So I'll tell you what I've done. I've written all of this into a script called How to Become Smarter. So I'm just going to share my screen for a second.
How to become smarter.
So I'm going to share my screen. I have a script called How to Become Smarter. It's supposed to be a 15 minutes video with an CGI monkey or an AI monkey. Okay? But what I'm doing is I put my entire script into AI and I've asked it to make a slide deck. So it's just working on making a slide deck. So I'll just wait for it to finish making a slide deck. Before that, I will just take some questions for you because I wrote it as text. Let me also put this into Gemini and answer things. While you're doing that, can you
give everyone here a brief of what exactly it is that you're going to talk about, because I think everyone's very curious about the title. Uh,
Yeah, awesome. So I'll tell you what, okay? I've been tracking AI since 2017. I've made posts since actually 2017, 2018 when OpenAI had this bot in Dota. Okay, there's a game called Dota, and OpenAI had this bot in this game called Dota where it went out and beat like 5 world champions at Dota. And since then, I've really been tracking it because Dota is not an easy game. It is pretty hard, and I think the minute I saw it, I got pretty shocked because I've spent a lot of time playing Dota, and suddenly suddenly this bot is beating like 5 humans. So I've been tracking it since then, and I've seen its evolution over the years. The minute they figured out, how to do pre-training, how to do pre-training well, transform pre-training, how to do RL well, how to do chain of thought. So every time AI is evolved, every time AI has gotten smarter and better, there's a new technique involved. And what I've realized over the years, or at least over the last 6 months, is that the same techniques apply to human beings, right? So if you applied the same techniques AI used since 2014 all the way to now, you could also become 10 times smarter, right? So it's a very weird idea set. It's not really 100x engineers. Usually at 100x engineers we talk about engineering, but here it's more like at the shift between how bots got smarter, what the techniques can we apply them to humans. So that's what we're trying to do. I'm just trying to make a. Is your deck ready? I'm just checking. I think ChatGPT's got stuck.
Classic.
But let's start anyway. Okay, awesome. Okay, guys, what is the first step, in your opinion, of how AI's got smarter? What do you think really changed this time with AI versus every other time we have tried AI? Everyone's saying data, context, data feeding, computing, and this is going to be a very interactive session. So I need you guys to, interact with me and tell me, because you'll learn more. Repetition, data. I'll leave you guys to give me some more answers. Okay, I'll tell you what it got better, okay? The step that really changed everything for this version of AI is something called pre-training. I'll tell you what pre-training is these days, okay? Pre-training is, let's go through the entire internet. Let's go through the entire internet and let's scrape all of its data. Pura data leke aayenge. Let's put it in this box, okay? Let's ignore how the actual transformer works, okay? And the reason we should ignore how the actual transformer works is because the transformer is based on how, it's a neural network, right? And it's based on how the human brain functions, right? The human brain is sort of like a neural network. And be very careful, these are similar but not exactly the same. But the entire idea with machine learning is, can we simulate how the brain works? Okay, can we simulate how information passes between so many of your neurons? Updating weights at every kind of section of the network from input all the way to output. So let us first collect all the world's data. Okay? So, and again, Amal is right. We don't know how the brain works, but a neural network was built to simulate how the brain works. Right? It's like, well, we have this rough sketch of how the brain works. Let's see if it works. Let me show you a very interesting diagram of this. Okay? Neural network identify. I used to have it in all my slide decks. Neural network identifying a face. Let me just show you how it looks like. At every layer. It's just easier to understand. Awesome. Share my screen. So as you can see here on this right side, this is a neural network, okay? So as you can see, these are hidden layers. And this, let's say this is the output. As you can see, at every layer, it's learning something new. So I can see this layer, it's learned what a diagonal line is. They start to learn what diagonal lines are. And as you keep going forward, it's learning what a full face is. And as you get even further, it's learning, a full object, right? So this is how neural networks work. This is how the brain also kind of works. But the entire point of a neural network is if you wanted to understand diagonal lines, you don't program it and say, please understand diagonal lines. That it figures out by itself. But what you need to give it is a huge amount of data. Right? This was pre-training. Now I'm going.
Oh shit, I forgot.
Like, would you know the English language if you didn't consume data about the English language? Like, what percentage, in your opinion? Is there anything you know that you haven't consumed data about? Can someone give me an example? We'll do a thought experiment. Can someone give me an example? Is there anything you know that you don't have data about? Malhar, to repeat the question, is there any concept you know in your life that you don't have any data about? That you've never, ever had exposure to? Sukesh has hit the nail on the head. There are some things you know that you have instinct about. Yes, Akhil says, well, I know how to pee, without, or poop without, watching a video and peeing or pooping. Right? There's some things you know without having, come on, think, I really need you to think. There are some things you know, crying, breathing, there are some things you know without you having data on, right? Awesome. So, the way the human brain works, the reason the human brain works without requiring as much pre-training as LLMs. LLMs require the entire internet to work. Okay, and actually even more than the entire internet, without that they don't work. Why do humans being work with so little data? It's because we are already pre-trained. Our DNA has pre-training. When your DNA is like a zip file, right? When it unzips into a new baby, there is, billions of years of evolution driving some of your instincts, right? How, when you talk, when you're able to walk, how you cry, how you breathe. But apart from that basic, set of pre-training, everything else is from the data you consume. So you can roughly say about 90% of everything you do comes from your environment. That's data exposure that you have. The other 10% comes from DNA and biological programming that you had, that your parents pass over to you. That's why even the way you walk, if you see, for example, my father's hair, right, and you see my hair, you'll realize they're kind of the same. The texture, the quality. If you see the way he walks, the way I walk, it's kind of the same. Even though I haven't spent too much time with my father in the last few years, I still have a lot of mannerisms that are similar to him. So this is all because of the magic of DNA. And you and I are both susceptible to the magic of DNA. But we are not focusing on DNA for now. We are focusing on pre-training, and we are saying that, well, a lot of the amount of pre-training that's happened is because of the exposure that you have. Now I'm going to ask you a question. Does that mean that technically you get smarter by more exposure? It's an interesting question to you all. So you all are saying that if you just consume more YouTube videos, if you just consume more podcasts, if you just watched more content, if you read more books, you technically become smarter. People are divided on this. The answer is yes. The answer is yes, you do become smarter, but in one way. Pre-trained models. Now, how many of you have used pre-trained models? Because we're going to go back to a few years ago, and we're going to use a pre-trained model. Okay, let's use GPT-2. Have you guys used GPT-2? Have you all used GPT-2? I'm going to use GPT-2. No. I bet you nobody's used GPT-2. GPT-2 is very old. GPT-2 is super old. Anyway, let me show you GPT-2. Okay, I just want to show you what pure pre-training in action is. None of the new techniques that LLMs have used in the last few years. I'm just going to open GPT-2 for y'all. Okay. I'm sharing my screen. This is GPT-2. Okay. What is 75? No. Who is bigger, Big Show or Hulk? Oh wait, this is running it on the API. Let me see if I can find out. See if I can find GPT GPT-2 is so old that let me see if I can find GPT-2 hugging face. It's so old that it's been a long time since anyone's hosted it. Yeah, it's pretty old. Okay, I think we have it here. Okay, this is GPT-2 XL. And by the way, this is an completionist model. So let's say who is bigger? Question, who is bigger? Big Show or Hulk? Answer. And by the way, in the old models, you had to use it like this because it's a text completion model. Let's see what it says. Again, as you can see, slightly slower model. Guys, who do you all think is bigger, Big Show or Hulk? Okay, everyone thinks Big Show is bigger. Okay, anyway, while this loads, okay, and then it's very hard to find, GPT-2 online hosted. But the point is that the answer is that GPT-2 will give you some rubbish, okay, and this is the fundamental problem with pre-training, which is that unless you have, like, even if you have the entire world's data, pre-training alone makes a lot of mistakes. I'll give you a very common pre-training issue, okay, with some of these models, or an issue with the outputs of some of these models, which is that it doesn't understand cause and effect. Okay, what I mean by that is, if you ask it who would win in a battle, a 1,000-foot balloon or a tiger, it would answer 1,000-foot balloon. Who do you think is going to win in a fight, 1,000-foot balloon or a tiger? You all tell me, who's going to win, 1,000-foot balloon or a tiger? Why would the tiger win? Why would the tiger win? Why? No, it's not because it's stronger. Exactly. Subrato answers it right. Claws. It's not because it's conscious. It's because of claws. It would pop the balloon. No matter how big the balloon is, it would pop. But because a pre-trained model... Okay, now I'm just going to show you, okay? And this is what pre-trained models do. So as you can see, I asked who is bigger, Big Show or Hulk. And as you can see, the output, it said Hulk. But then it started asking other questions. Q, what do you think of the new characters? I like them all, but I don't know if they're good enough to be in the movie. Q, will you ever see the X-Men again? No. Q, how much? Rubbish. So as you can see, it's a good talking machine. It can talk. It can feel like real talk. But it's not really answering any question. It's not really thinking it through. Okay? It's kind of like rubbish. And therefore, if you ask this question of tiger versus balloon, it would always answer balloon or something wrong, or it will sidetrack and it will go into a story about tigers and balloons. So it's not like that. It's a talking machine, right? It's a word generation machine. It's very clearly a word generation machine, and you have to understand this because when you go 2 years in the past and you something like GPT-2, you need to see what a miracle it is to go from GPT-2 to GPT-4, right? So a lot of pre-training. So if you go out and just consume a lot of podcasts, you go out, watch a lot of videos, you go out, read a lot of books. The problem is you become sort of like GPT-2, which is you become a machine that can Like, hey, what did this guy say on this person's podcast? You can repeat it. You know that the words that the person said, but you really don't understand cause and consequence yet, right? So it's very important part of your learning process to consume a lot of data, but you become a repetition machine. You're good at conversation, right? So in a party, it'll be fun because you'll know a lot of trivia, okay? And this is my biggest problem with the kind of content I do, right? Like, a lot of the content I do, it's trivia. The word trivia basically is, and I don't like making trivia content on short form, but people really like it and it gets engagement, which is some useless information about something. I'm just like, this is not going to change your life at all. But you want to consume this information. You are an information sponge. You consume a lot of the information. This is the problem statement. Okay? And this is where we got stuck at with GPT-2. Now, I'm asking you the next part of this. How did we go from GPT-2 to GPT-4? How did we go? What did we learn? No, it was not fine-tuning. No, it was not compute power. What is step 2? What was step 2? Guys, this has to be an interactive session because the entire goal of this is try to make you smarter. Awesome. I'll tell you what step 2 was. It is something called reasoning. Have you all heard of reasoning? Reasoning? Okay, I'll tell you what it is, okay? So let's say we have we'll try to make this entire concept through a monkey. So let's say a monkey, we ask this question of, is a 1,000-foot balloon stronger than a tiger? And the monkey says, yeah, a 1,000-foot balloon is stronger. And then you ask the monkey, think clearly. Tell me how you're thinking about this. And yes, Pawan says DeepSeek, that is the DeepSeek innovation. But it's that's not DeepSeek's innovation, but DeepSeek was able to do much cheaper. But the idea is, and you can see it when AIs do something, which is this. I'm going to share my screen. And it's a beautiful thing that AIs do. Can you see this thinking here? This thinking here? It's thinking. Choosing visuals for cinematic slide deck, planning visuals and speaker notes, planning for AI slide deck creation. It's thinking the process through. Chain of thought. Right? Now, I'm going to ask you, what did the AI models do? What is this chain of thought? What exactly is chain of thought? What is chain of thought? Can someone explain it to me in the chat? Somebody says thinking step by step. How do you train a model to think step by step? I'm asking you, how do you train a model to think step by step? Somebody said, you teach it other people's chain of thought. Okay? And so there's 2 ways to do it, okay? The first way is you thought. You say, bro, another person was thinking about this problem and he thought about this problem like this. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. This is how he thought about the problem. That's one way. The other way is through reinforcement learning by human feedback, which is basically a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So you show a bit of chain of thought. You say, well, monkey, how are you thinking about this balloon versus thing? And it gives you a thought. You say, thumbs down. Wrong. Try again. So it tries again. This time it says tiger because claws. And then you say, good. Right? So you're doing a thumbs up, you're doing a thumbs down. Right? And again, I'm simplifying this. This is a much more complicated process when it comes to LLMs. But the entire idea is that you give it these samples of chain of thought. We had thousands and thousands of samples of chain of thought that we exposed the model to. And then we also looked at some of their outputs and we gave them up or down feedback. So it's a combination of chain of thought and reinforcement learning by human feedback. Not just reinforcement by human feedback on the model's hidden chain of thought, but also on their outputs. Right? So this process, how do you apply this to human? How do you apply this to a human being? How is the model understanding thumbs up, thumbs down? It turns out if you have lots and lots of outputs, and sometimes you've done this. Sometimes when you ask ChatGPT, it gives you 2 outputs and asks you to rate one of the outputs over each other. The reason Midjourney became such a good image model is you would generate 4 images and you would upscale one. You remember? You would upscale one of the images. That's a signal to the platform. people prefer these kind of images, right? That is reinforcement learning by human feedback. You are giving your output, and you can give output on many things, right? You can give outputs on, you can see the two outputs, you can decide which of the two to give output to. You can actually, show it, and there are many techniques, right? There's one called DPO that allows you to kind of, take preference sets. So there's lots of ways to do it. We won't go into specific ways to do it, but we will talk about how pre-trained models went from GPT-2 to these smarter models that can do reasoning. Right? You remember Q-star? You all remember Q-star? Why is reasoning important? Reasoning is important because reasoning and chain of thought is important for planning. Right? If you don't have a chain of thought, if you don't say tiger beats balloon because tiger has claw, claw will come out, claw will scratch balloon, balloon will burst. That's 4 steps. If you're not able to think step by step, then it's pointless. You'll only think about the end state. You can't plan. Right? Step by step is useful for planning. So this is how all the people sitting in South Delhi who are watching all these podcasts and think they're becoming smarter, this is how they truly go to the next step, which is after consuming all these podcasts, they start training on chain of thought. Now this is a little bit hard to do, okay? Because this requires, by definition, a mentor figure, right? You need a little bit of a mentor figure, right? Like to tell you you're going in the right place or the wrong place, correct? This is the hard part for human beings to do. Who's there to tell you when you're right or wrong? Is there a right or wrong really in the world? Right? And sometimes building in public is hard because when you build in public, the public can be wrong. Right? So this is like the biggest challenge in the world, which is there's no one to tell you if your chain of thought is correct or wrong. Right? And also you're not really seeing other people's chain of thoughts. But I think there's a very good way to see chain of thought. I think there's a super way to see chain of thought, which is to see a lot of people who create tutorials. This is actually step 2 of becoming smarter. Have you ever watched a tutorial of someone like designing something in Photoshop or like, writing some code or whatever? Have you seen people do tutorials? Tutorials are chain of thought. What is the next step this person is taking? Okay, he's correcting it. He's made this step, he's been wrong, he goes back 1 step. Right? You're seeing background of what a person is doing to go from step 1 to step 10. So tutorials are very useful because you are training your brain on other people's chain of thought. How are they doing this? But also you still need feedback. Okay? So this is step 2 of becoming smarter, which is try to see other people's chain of thought. How are they thinking? That's why this session is also like very useful, right? Because this is me thinking about how I should plan my session, what kind of data should I do, get better, who are the experts I need to speak to in order to deliver crisp video later. This is step 2, which is chain of thought, reasoning. Okay? Cool. What is step 3? If we were in step 2, we'd have all these, GPT-4. We had GPT-4 3 months ago, 4 months ago, 6 months ago. How did we go further from GPT-4? There's another step. What's the next step? We'll come to multimodal in a bit. But I think before multimodal, there's something else that happened. Everyone's thinking what are things that happened. Let's summarize so far. First step was pre-training. Second step was reasoning and chain of thought. What's the third step? I'll tell you the third step. Okay? The third step was tool use. You all remember? Think of ChatGPT features. What is the third feature that came out in ChatGPT? Didn't it allow you to connect Google Drive, web search? You all remember web search came? You could do a search, you could do deep research. Think tool use. You could upload images, right? Tool use. Actually, uploading images is not really tool use, but because you could use third-party tools, right? We had NA10. Do you all remember NA10 that came out? It was all tool use. Connect this tool, connect that tool. Now, I want to ask you, why is tool use important? What is the value of tool use? To expand what you do, right? Humans are we're dominant species on the planet because we can use tools. And if we are only limited to our intelligence, we would be like, that oracle in Matrix where you're sitting on a wheelchair or Professor Xavier, right? You're sitting on a wheelchair, you can't do anything, but you're just using your brain to do everything. But we don't do that. We pick up the glass, we drink coffee. We are able to press buttons, right? We are able to open Photoshop, we're able to open Zoom. We can use tools, right? So that was the next step, which is tool use. And the problem with a lot of humans, let's go back to the South Bombay guy who's watched a lot of podcasts. Now somehow he has learned chain of thought, and he has a mentor figure who's giving him a plus or minus signal on every thought that he has, refining his outputs. Now this mentor figure has said, well, I need you to start using tools, and this person started using tools. He started using a car to drive around. You all know how to drive a car. South Bombay, South Delhi, whatever, man, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying, there's lots of people who consume a lot of podcasts, but they don't put into action. Tool use is the next step. So a lot of people who I have met in my life who have become very successful, this is just a personal anecdote, are people who are really good with tools. Like I got very good with Photoshop when I was young. I got good with VS Code when I was young. So similarly, I know a lot of people who have gotten good with a lot of tools. Even today, we use a tool like we use Unreal Engine, which is a tool. And actually, if you think about it, a lot of jobs, the reason you get hired in the job is actually because of your tool use. At the lower levels of jobs, you get hired for tool use. Are you a good editor? Are you a good designer? Are you a good this? Like there's a tool involved, right? Are you good at Photoshop? Are you good at After Effects? Are you good at Premiere Pro? And all your thinking and reasoning are actually higher order skills. You get higher salary once you have those, right? Yes, Amal, tech stacks. For a lot of people, a tech stack is their tool use, right? Like think, oh, I know the stack very well. I know MERN very well. Well, this is my tool, and I got very good at this. So step 3 is to get good at some tool. Believe it or not, in life, a lot of people don't get good at any tool. And for a lot of people, the best tool they get good at is Excel. Okay? And AI started using tools, and they didn't start using tools in agentic fashion. It's more like we gave them API calls. They were able to use their intelligence to, do things in tools automatically through API. They weren't able to use their hands to use tools like humans do. But tool calling was step 3 of how to make models smarter. Now let's come to step 4. What is step 4? If we got to this point, we would have Google Drive connection, we'd have web search, we'd have deep research. What is step 4? Everyone's saying agents. No, there's something else. There's something else. Think clearly. Clear thinking I want from everybody. Exactly. There was a new option on ChatGPT that allowed you to upload images and also generate images. I'm going to ask you a question. Is Nano Banana tool use? Is Nano Banana tool use? Some people are saying yes, some people are saying no. Think clearly. I'm asking you to think clearly right now. Go back to step 2. Step 2 is about think through the process. Is Nano Banana tool use? In my opinion, Nano Banana is not tool use. It's not tool use. In fact, a lot of these models now are multimodal. And you've heard of multimodal a lot, right? Multimodal is they consume text, images, video, but they also produce text, images, video. Right? Correct? So step 4, and the reason models got better is they started becoming multimodal. People realized why should we only train them on all the text in the world? We should train on everything. We should train on video. We should train on audio. We should train on images. And why only limit to producing text? We should allow them to produce video and audio and text. Right? Now, Hardik asks, how are multimodal models trained? Multimodal models trained. Kind of the same way, right? Just like you tokenize text, you can also tokenize a video. You just have to represent the video in mathematical vectors, which we can do. We already learned from text. So as long as we have the compute to tokenize videos and then train on a huge corpus of video, why not? Now, videos are trained slightly differently. I tried training a video model of my own maybe a couple of years ago. It came out absolute rubbish, but compute really matters here. And with Sora, OpenAI first showed that if you have lots and lots and lots of compute, it starts making sense of the world, right? Now, I'm going to ask you a question. What is the mistake people do, and why are people not multimodal? I mean, you could say by definition, we are speaking, we are creating text, we are audio first. But what can humans take away from multimodality? We obviously consume all sorts of content. We consume text, we consume audio, we consume video. Okay, all of you are wrong. And I'll tell you where you are all wrong. Okay, the problem is not in our inputs. We of course consume all sorts of inputs. The problem is in our outputs. The problem is we only produce text. Okay, and you know, on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, there's an order. Okay, the order is everyone who comments, it's easy to comment. It's text. It's a low bandwidth, right? Easy to output format. How many of you produce audio? How many of you produce audio? How many of you go out there and make podcasts? Zero? Very few? How many of you produce video? Higher bandwidth, more multimodal. How many of you produce video? Very few people? Correct? So this is the fundamental problem, right? Being multimodal means that you also, it's not just about consumption, it's also about production. Okay? And smarter models, if you notice, are very good. Like a C Dance, it's very good at producing output video. C Dream, sorry. Whatever you call C Dance, C Dream. Both of them. C Dream is the image one. So C Dance produces a lot of video. It's very smart at producing video. Right? And as you can see, LLMs can be really good at text, but they're still a little worse at video. So really, to test your skills out and to make human beings smarter, you need to produce video. Right? And I'm not talking about using VO3 to produce video. I'm talking about you. Like whatever concept you've learned, can you make a video out of? Right? And we all fundamentally know this, right? Let's say there's a concept. Let's say there's Bernoulli's theorem. Okay? Bernoulli's principle, sorry. And you have to explain it in text, maybe you can explain it. Then you have to explain it in audio, you have to do it on a podcast, maybe you can explain it. But then you have to explain it in a video. You have to make a you have to record a video on a whiteboard of you drawing the steps. That's much harder, right? Right? Am I still online? Am I here? Okay, awesome. So that's the next step, which is that you need to, in order to continue to become smarter, your outputs need to be multimodal. Okay? Now we go to the next step, which is something called, and I want to tell you how LLMs continue to get smarter. What is something else that in every LLM release, the providers talk about? From Google to OpenAI, they always talk about this. And it's been increasing year on year on year. Every year it's been increasing. Somebody said SWE benchmark. We'll come to that later. Yes, context size. Context size. In one working shot, how much context can you learn and absorb from? And this doesn't require pre-training. This doesn't require you to go retrain a completely new model, change the weights and biases. We don't need this right now. This is, if I show you a bunch of text, can you put this text in your working memory? And you see a lot of smart people, they can't multitask. Like you give them 5 things, they get confused and they're like, no, mujhe stress ho raha hai, mujhe sirf ek pe kaam karna hai. The thing that I constantly get surprised by, right, and something a lot of my employees get surprised by is just how many things I have in my context. At any given point of time, I could be doing 20 things, right? And I have them in context. I know, okay, this thing needs this thing needs this thing. I just have it in my brain. Like I have this map, this giant context window. But someone who's young, let's say who's 20, I'm 32 now, or 33 now, but like, let's say somebody who's like 21 or 22, their context window is much smaller, okay? Their ability to do in-context learning, which is, hey, here's a paragraph, here's all the context about the problem. Let's say we're making an ad film for somebody, there's like 5, pointers you need to keep. They forget 3. It's just context window, okay? Now I want to ask you this question, which is, how do you improve your context window? What is a way to increase context window? Somebody said by writing it down somewhere. Interesting, but I'm just asking about the process of working with like lots of context without writing it down. How to keep that context in your brain? Upper hit the nail on the head, which is there's two ways, right? The first one is, I think, it's just a lot of practice. Put yourself in an unfamiliar situation, because what an LLM does a lot of the time is it works with the lowest amount of context needed. Okay. Now, if you're familiar with RAG techniques, right, and I'm just going to show you this. Okay. So I'm just going to show you something, a phenomena that we came across many years ago when we were doing RAGs. Okay. I'm just going to show you here, which is something called RAG compression. RAG is retrieval augmented generation, which means that we can take, a bunch of LLM. I mean, we can make sure that we use context inside of the LLM when it's answering a question, but we can optimize that. Why should we keep all the context? So what it started doing is we started to optimize LLM performance by reducing the amount of retrieved context. Instead of taking the entire thing, can we just take the main keywords? Okay, can we just take like a compressed version of it? And it's very easy to do this, right? Like in LangChain, there's a function. I'll show you. LangChain had a function for compression. I forgot what it's called. Let's find out. Okay, it's called. It's called. I don't remember what it's called. It's been a couple of years. Maybe contextual compression. I think they've changed the API. But yes, there was a technique that allowed you to compress what you get in. And every time it's having a conversation, like we did this experiment with Elon Musk talking to Jeff Bezos, and that's talking to Steve Jobs. We did a 3D experiment. And every time they spoke at each other, it's like the context then kept going up and up and up. We're like, why should they remember the entire conversation? Let them just remember the important points. Otherwise, token costs keep going up. So we kept compressing. We kept compressing again and again and again and again. And one of the things I'm very good at is I'm very good at compressing things in my head, right? So if I am doing 5 things at once, I don't have like huge documents in my head of all 5 things. I just have compressed versions. Now, where am I filling in the rest of the context from? It's from experience, right? I'm very good at using compressed information because my experience has the rest of the information to fill it in. And sometimes it might not be accurate to the zipped version of the context that I have. But because I have experience, because I've been in so many unfamiliar situations, I am good at unzipping to that situation. Ravindra says memory.md, right? And this is not pre-training. This is not going and training the model again, right? So in my opinion, the only way to continue to improve context window is to work with, other people's contexts. Like somebody gives you a context in your job and just keep expanding it over time. So 2 things happen. One is your own context window keeps increasing. The second one is you get better at compression, right? You get better at compressing again and again, right? So summarizing your learning and experiences is definitely one way to do compression. But I think more than anything, to increase your context window, you need to be put in unfamiliar situations, right? So you need to be put in situations where you are not sure if something will work, and your job is to execute with that little bit of context. And I think there are lots of people who need months of training for every new context, but there's some people who need much lesser. And I think one way to do a lot of learning from context is to study history, right? So if you know why schools have history, you know why schools have history, you know why schools teach history. Sagar is right, so that we don't make the same mistakes, patterns repeat again and again. You're supposed to study history so that you're supposed to say, well, when 2 humans get into this situation, this is the output. That's the reason you're supposed to study history. It's not to remember Battle of Panipat happened in 17 whatever. That is not why you have to remember history. The dates are the least important part. Again, schools and colleges forgot all of this. But the entire idea is so that you know how to unzip small situations into big ones, right? You know, if these 2 people get into this situation, this is going to be the output, okay? And I just feel like schools and colleges have failed us at this specific thing. But this is the reason that now you know this, you can go back and study history and be like, what were the lessons, right? Because history is a good way to unzip context. just going to show you. Okay, it's this. It's you go to a chat GPT, okay, or you go to a Gemini, and you just ask this prompt, which is give me 3 insights, including anecdotal experiences and takeaways for life and business from book name, and do a deep research on this prompt. Okay, write this prompt down. Give me 3 insights including anecdotal experiences and takeaway for life or business from book name. Now, what books do you need to study? The way I do it is take all the people I love, right? Like all the people I look up to. Peter Thiel's favorite books. Okay? And I just go through his book recommendations. Right? So, for example, he really liked Bloodlands or Resurrection from Underground by Rene Girard. And I'll take this and I'll put it in that prompt that I had. Right? And it'll give me all the insights from it. It's a quick way to read, to read context and to learn stuff. I can't see it, but anyway. Okay, let's go to the next step. Now, models have gotten good. They have gotten, they're very good at having long context. They're very good at tool use. What was the next step? What is the next step? Somebody said agents, AGI, use case. No, there was a next step that all the models got right. Anthropic just banned so many different model providers from doing this with them. What is it? What is it? Anthropic got angry with a lot of companies for doing this with them. That's right, it is distillation. The problem with this, okay, with everything that we're doing so far, is these models now became gigantic. Big context window, huge models. Bro, like these models are like bloody, massive, right? And you have to run them. You needed like tons and tons of VRAM to run them. The next step, and something that I would personally say I've gotten very good at in the last 2 years, is something called distillation. Anyone wants to tell me what distillation is? What is distillation? Distillation is, can we take out only the useful patterns? Why do we need to have a 100B model, 100 billion parameter model, when we could have a much smaller model? Can we have an 8B model? Can we have a 32B model and keep only the important patterns? Do we need everything? We don't need everything, but we need space saving. We need to run on edge device. We need to run on the phone, right? Can we do keyboard, specific tasks especially? Okay, so we retrain a model for specific use cases, right? And it's not, sometimes it's not even specific use cases. It's just, can we retrain a model with lesser, the important patterns, okay? And people were doing, and you can do this with the outputs of another model, right? And this is why I always believe it's important to work for somebody you really admire and you really like, and you will never be like them. Like if you work for a Kunal Shah, you'll never exactly be like him. You'll be like a distilled version, which I think is even more valuable. Right? Because you're seeing him take an input and him taking an output, and you're seeing, well, what's the relationship? You work for like this, some top entrepreneurs, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, whatever. You become a distilled version of them. Correct? Correct? Distillation, just the important patterns, just the important inputs and outputs. Here's how you do it. One is you work for somebody you really admire. That's one way to distill. There's another way to distill, which is you can self-distill yourself, which is you teach other people what you have learned. If you teach other people just the fundamentals of what you have learned, you run a smaller parameter version of yourself. A very good example of this is me. When I started making YouTube videos, I started learning that I don't need to keep 100% of things in my memory. Like for example, and most people don't know this, I'm just going to share my screen. 2 years ago, or actually 5 years ago, let me show you this. I have a channel called Varun Maya Level 2. Most people don't know this. And I have like, for example, I have like 19 videos on Photoshop. How to do transformations, how to do color correction, how to do text and fonts, layer styles, filter gallery, blah, blah, blah. I have like 50 episodes on game development. Unreal Engine during COVID time, just like 4 or 5 years ago. 50 episodes on everything, events, variables, particles, construction script, like full, like 14, 15, 20 minute, 30 minute videos. Right? Today, believe it or not, I know less than what I've produced there. I know less than that. And the reason I know less than that is because I am a distilled version of what I have there. Because today I run a game dev team. But because I run a game dev team, I can hire for people who have large models but specific use cases who can only do one thing. And it was preferable now that I run a distilled version of myself. And as you level up in life, you'll see that the best entrepreneurs have like distilled versions of, model. Like you might ask, right? Like, Varun, are you as technical as you were 3 years ago? Actually, the answer is no. But that's because I'm doing multiple things. My context window is larger, but I'm running a distilled version of myself. Right? And parts of, for example, on the entrepreneurship side, because I've spent, like, for example, on the content creation side, I don't have an original model. I only have a distilled model because I spend a lot of time, I have a distilled version of on my butts model running in my brain. Right? So you don't need to run full models. I think a lot of people on Twitter especially, they get confused, they get too technical, right? And then they get stuck because they're running these large models. And the problem with large models is over time, a distilled model will always beat a big model because the world changes. And a big model can't adapt easily. It's a 100B model. You have to retrain from scratch, right? So you build a distilled model. Okay? So the way to become a distilled model is to teach other people, which I have done, and you only retain the important principles. So you don't need to be 100%, off. And sure, there'll be periods of your life where you're 100% good. There are periods of my life where, I would have kicked every software engineer's ass like 5-6 years ago. But today I'm running a distilled version of it because I need to run a company. And it's a very different use case than normal. Now, Mayan asks, then why are models like Kimi or Quen or DeepSeek not as good as Claude? Because Claude is not a distilled model. Like Opus 4.6 is not a distilled model, it's a big model. Big models will always be smarter. But distilled models are very space saving. And it brings me to my next point, which is, let's say now these models got very good at distilling. What is the next step? There's a next step. Distilled model, what's the next step? What did all these models brag about? And of course, Hari, the entire idea of distilled models is that you can run them on phones and all that instead of running them on the cloud. Sahil says it right. The next step is mixture of experts. Have you all heard of mixture of experts? Let me show you. Right, so there was a beautiful, I think GPT-4 for the first time we learned was a mixture of experts. So you have these multiple specialized sub-networks, okay? And any data, it goes through these multiple experts and the experts weigh in. Like you could have one health expert, one this expert, one that expert, they weigh in and they give an output, right? So you split a model into multiple experts and you have each of these experts work together to give you an output, okay? Now, one of the cool things we learned with mixture of experts is, of course, it makes the model even bigger, right? Because you have an 8 into 16 or 8 into something, right? Right? Makes the model bigger. Right or no? Mixture models make model much bigger because you have multiple different models running with each other, right? But here's the thing. If you use distilled models, which we learned in the last step, then technically your model can be the same size, but you have one distilled model for most use cases, for most thought process, one for health, one for this, one for that. So the entire idea of distillation is that this is where we come to being a polymath, right? Is that you have these multiple distilled experts, okay, through all these processes, right? All the way from pre-training. So let's say you have a part of yourself that's very good at being, let's say, a content creator, right? One of the experts in your head out of the mixture of experts. There you need to have pre-trained, you need to learn a lot of information, you need to have a mentor, right, to give you RLHF, and you need to make sure your thought process is correct. So you need to watch a lot of behind the scenes tutorials. Then the next step is you going out there and distilling the model, learning the tools first, distilling model, etc., and you have this neatly packed, 8P model sitting in your head for content creation. You say, okay, I've learned this, then let me learn the next thing. Let me learn entrepreneurship. Let me learn engineering. Let me learn this, that, whatever. And you have all these mixture of experts sitting in your brain, and they all use one context window. By the way, the cool thing about MOE is that it's not that each of these has a separate context window. All of their context windows are shared. Right, so you're running compressed versions of model of the world, compressed versions of world views for health, world views for tech, world views for this world, whatever you want. You have compressed, distilled version of all these models running in your head, one context window. And technically, yes, Akhil, you become sort of a jack of all trades, right? You, by distillation, you're preventing yourself from becoming master. If you want to become a master, that's great, but I don't think the world now likes master of one thing because the world shifts very often. So it's better to be mixture of experts, 8 things at once, but distilled versions of all of them. Okay? Now, the last step is something called self-play. Right? Actually, the second last step is something called self-play. What is self-play? Self-play is the ability to say, well, actually, to continue improving myself, why do I need other people? Why do I need other people? I could just do things by myself, right? I could simulate strategies by myself. I could play out all the strategies by myself. This is how AlphaGo got good, right? The chess model. It's just 2 more steps, guys. Don't worry. This is the second last step. Right? Self-play. I mean, a lot of humans have programming for self-play. It's called anxiety. Right? Thinking about all possible futures when they haven't happened. The best speakers that I know, the best people who go on stage, the best people who negotiate, when you meet them before they go on stage, they're talking to themselves. Right? They're replaying that conversation in their head. If you've ever done it, it's self-play, but you can do it intentionally also, not just because you're having anxiety. You can talk to yourself, you can keep improving, you can be like, well, he'll say this, then I'll say this, then he'll say this, then I'll say this. Well, if he says this, then I'll say this. Right? Everybody does it. So this is self-play, and a lot of models now are able to do self-play. They're able to talk to themselves, and you have this, like, you can have a village of people, a council of models talking to each other and giving you an output. Right? The last step, and something that I think a lot of model providers have not figured out yet, if you talk to Demis, he'll tell you that this is something they're still working on, is something called continual learning. Right? Models haven't figured this out. Continual learning is, well, till now we're working on the context window. We're saying we're not going and retraining the model. But what if you can continuously retrain the model as you learn new information? Right? What if you could update the weights and biases in real time? And that is continual learning. We haven't cracked it yet. It's very, very simple, which is the ability to go out there and say, well, I learned something new. My data says something, my current model says something different. This new chain of thought, new this, new that. How do I unlearn and learn this new stuff? And humans are genuinely terrible at unlearning. Right? We're very, very bad at unlearning. Unlearning is, shaking away the old weights and biases. Once our weights and biases get in, it's a way of thinking. And there's 3 reasons humans do this, right? One is sunk cost, which is I've already spent 4 years doing a degree. Now I can't give up on this. Now I have to do this, right? But continual learning is not really like this. Continual learning is really like, if I've spent 4 years, who cares? Let me re-update the weights. Maybe the world doesn't care about this thing that I'm studying anymore, right? And continual learning, then there's sunk cost reasoning. There's identity attachment, which is I'm a finance person. I learned finance. Why should I learn engineering now? I'm a software engineer. Why should I learn something else now? Right? We're bad at updating our weights and biases, and so are models. Continual learning has not been cracked in models. Right? We're still figuring out how to do this. And the last one is like I think we have pruning failure, which is we're not able to remove old data from the head fast enough. We still have some example of someone who did well at something 5 years ago, and we're like, well, that's the same world now, but it's not the same world now. So I think AI models will crack continual learning. That's how we get good employees, and the best in the world are like very very good at continual learning, because they're able to say, well, I used to think like this, it's gone now, that world is over now. Like I was able to ditch software engineering because I was like 2 years ago, I was like, this world is over now, right? And I have to move on to this, and which we have done, I think, successfully well. So anyway, this is the fundamentals of how AIs have become smarter, how humans can learn from it. I don't want to keep going on and on. I think we've spent almost an hour and 7 minutes on this. Sid, thank you so much for letting me do this. And I know that you guys are like one of the best environments to do a lot of the things that we have spoken about in this whatever episode, chapter, video, whatever you want to call it, session. And I think ultimately where most people will get stuck is that step 2 of having mentors to check their chain of thought and tell them they're right or wrong. I don't think teachers in college have time, right, to sit with you, because they're doing 1:100. It's like one teacher for 100 students. So how do you check everybody's chain of thought? How do you check everybody's output? It's very, very tough. And also teachers, like most teachers in college, are there because they got no other job. So they're not the right people to kind of check your outputs. That's why most people get stuck, which is checking the outputs and also seeing behind the scenes. So one advantage with you is because you're sitting through sessions at 100x and you're seeing behind the scenes, you're able to see why something works. But ultimately, the other points also matter, and it's not necessary to be part of any cohort or community to learn all of these things. You just need to know these principles. Please don't get stuck at step 1, which is just consuming a lot of information, just having it with you. I will anyway make a video on this a few months later, so you can wait for it. And I'll keep doing this, right? I'll keep doing a session once every few weeks whenever I have something new. And yes, like one of the best mentors is AI, right? Like AI can check your thought process and tell you if you're right or wrong. But again, AI's job is to elevate the statistically likely, so you become generic. At the end of the day, it'll put you square in the center, right? Which you don't want to be. You want to be an outlier. So like I said, like ultimately all this boils down to, if you hang around with outlier people, you hang around with awesome people, you become like them because of many of these reasons. You become a distilled version of them. And if you hang around with 5 different mentors, like Batman, right, from Raza, like he goes to Raza Al Ghul, he gets fight training, he goes to somebody else, he gets some other training. So every mentor of yours will teach you something, and you have a compressed version of all of them in your brains. So you're running mixture of experts, distilled mixture of experts, which is how the latest models are working. Yeah, that's about it. Shoya Katas will be back next week. I'm doing something on a topic called attribution, but here is like the 100x sessions are where I practice. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Bye. See you.
Before you leave, Uri, can you take like 3 to 4 questions from the chat?
I'll take 2 questions. Let's do two questions. Let's go.
Yeah. And once that's done, we have a cohort coming up like next week. And I'll just talk a little bit about that. So if you guys are interested, definitely stay back for that.
Okay, let's quick question, guys. Come on, let's go. Okay, somebody said questions. Somebody said, is AI bubble or not? I think it's the wrong way to think about life. In every scenario, there will be some companies that are bubbly and some companies that are real. I think with AI, there's just a lot of spending going on, and it's a useful tool, right? Like, forget about whether companies are spending this, that, whatever. It's a useful tool. I use it every day. You use it every day. It's useful for a wide variety of things. I just showed you, like I use it to summarize books. I use it to make text. There's so many things I use it for. So as long as there's use, like I use it every day to make AI avatar content. So like as long as there's everyday use, it's not going anywhere. Let's take one more question. Shaurya asked, you partner with a venture? No, so basically we have a fund called Activate. which I started on the side. I don't run the fund. I'm a venture partner, which is basically one of the people who sit at the top of the fund. I don't have time to run a fund on a day-to-day basis. It's a 650 crore fund. It's run by Arctic actually, and I spend maybe 2 hours a week on the fund thinking about how to help the companies we invest in. It's not my full-time job. I would really recommend you reach out to Arctic from Activate for it. Don't spam me because I usually don't. I will wait for someone to directly, you need to have directly reached out to Arctic from Activate and you can figure out how to do it. But it's a sizable fund and we raised 650 crores there just to help invest in really cool AI companies. So some of you will end up, we have a good relationship with 100x engineers. So some of the companies that go through their cohort who do well, we might invest in the company. So it's all a relationship game. We don't know which of these companies will do well, but we're looking at funding the next few companies that are able to use. I really like the hybrid between services and AI because we have built EOS has built a very successful services AI company. The hybrid of it. We think that can be done for finance. We think that can be done for BPOs. We think that can be done for a lot of stuff. That's why we raised 650 crores there to invest in some of these companies. But I'm just a venture partner there, which is I'm one of the key people. I'm not the main guy there. The main guy there is Arpit. This is my entire thing is my side hobby. Awesome. Anyway, I'm gonna jump.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you so much for doing this, and you're always welcome to use these sessions as your scratch pad.
I have to now think of new ideas. Anyway, bye.
Bye. Right, guys. That was Varun. I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes. By the way, firstly, I'm going to show you a lot of the people were asking for a summary. While Varun was doing the session, I by the way, had notes of Varun before that session before he actually did the session. And I tried generating a bunch of slide decks and stuff. My voice is not clear. What's happening? Can you fix that? Yeah? Okay. Is it clear? Is it good? Are we good? Awesome. Yeah, so while Varun was doing that, I tried generating a bunch of slide decks from his notes. So I'm just going to bring up one of those decks and you guys can just take a screenshot of it, which will basically help you summarize everything. So I'm just going to bring up that screenshot over here. This is my Claude. I used Claude for it. So you can just take a screenshot of these parts. Like I said, remember you had to take notes for this, right? That was the best way to absorb it. But if you just want pointers from all the stages of intelligence from step 1, which is pre-training, to step 10, which is continual learning, just take a screenshot of this and you're good to go. Okay? That being said, I'm going to spend the next 15, 20 odd minutes talking about our upcoming Applied AI cohort. Like Varun said, this is he ends up funding some of the students from the cohort if the ideas are actually good. But primarily, it's a very entrepreneurship focused cohort. So if you're interested, do stay back for that. So I'll just quickly walk you through that. If you're not interested, thank you so much for joining. And I'll probably see you in some other session. But for those of you who are interested, let me just get into it right now. Right, let me just check the chat. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to start sharing another screen of mine. Okay, how many of you know that we have a cohort, by the way? How many of you know we have a cohort? We do an Applied AI program. How many of you are aware of it? How many of you are not aware of it? Already enrolled. Okay, nice. Aware, I know, didn't know, aware, didn't know. Me, but I don't know how to get in there. Okay. Registered for C7. Nice. Oh wow, we have quite a lot of folks who have already enrolled. Awesome. Nice. Okay, so if you've already enrolled, this is going to be completely useless for you, but if you're not enrolled, give me 10 minutes to tell you what it's all about. I want to start talking by some of the students who have taken this cohort from the past. By the way, the next cohort that we're doing is cohort 7. This is the 7th iteration of the cohort, which means we've had 6 iterations to really nail it down and perfect it. And in the 7th cohort, And through the last 6 cohorts, we've had quite a lot of success stories, both from an employment perspective, as in people have gotten jobs or promotions, but also from an entrepreneurial perspective. People have started their own companies, gotten funding, etc., etc. So I'm going to talk a little bit about both of these sides so that you guys get an understanding and maybe you're able to relate to one of them or maybe both of them, right? Full disclosure, this is a completely online cohort. It's 6 months long. That's the timeline that we're talking about. And currently, this is the most in-depth applied AI cohort in the world right now. There is no program in the world that runs for 6 months and that is so in-depth in terms of what it teaches. First up, we have someone from our first cohort. His name is Divyansh. Divyansh actually built a tool called Buzzly, which basically is a LinkedIn copywriter and marketing material generator. It basically generates marketing material for LinkedIn. And Divyansh actually pitched this in his interview at LinkedIn, and he actually got hired by LinkedIn. But recently I heard that he left LinkedIn as well, but this tool in itself has been doing pretty well. Like, he's generating a decent amount of revenue using this tool, and he's trying to grow this tool. He's had a small team of people who's actually working on this tool, improving this tool, etc. If you want to check this out, just go to buzzly.in. Buzzly spelled with 2 Z's, right? So that's one of the best success stories that's come out of our cohort. The next one is Pranay, who's one of my favorites. Pranay was a part of cohort 1. He owned a website design agency or a web development agency, and eventually after the cohort he got into AI based services like AI filmmaking, AI ad creation, AI full stack app development, and his business grew exponentially. So currently his agency is doing $500,000 in annual recurring revenue, which is quite a significant amount of money. And it's called Nexi Labs. If you guys want to check out, you can go check out Nexi Labs. So Pranay is one of the entrepreneurial success stories, and because he's done so well and Pranay has understood whatever he learned from the cohort, we called Pranay back into the ecosystem as an instructor. So Pranay, alongside me, actually teaches the cohort right now. So we have a bunch of tracks in the cohort. Like, we have an entrepreneurship track, we have a career accelerator track, and Pranay is the one who actually leads one of these tracks since he already has a successful entrepreneurial setup, right? So we call Pranay back. Pranay is working with us right now, and he's one of the best people you can actually learn from, because he's someone who's actually been through the journey that some of you are about to go through, and he's actually made it successful for himself. So who better to actually learn from rather than him, right? One more interesting story that I like to talk about is Soumitra, who works at Meta in San Francisco. And Soumitra wanted to transition from a pure marketing role to an AI marketing role, where he wanted to build AI systems for Meta ads. And once he completed the cohort, he was actually able to secure that promotion, and he was able to secure that kind of role, right? One of the things that you will notice in the kind of people who are a part of the cohort are, most of the people are folks who already have some experience or a lot of experience. The average age in the cohort is 32 years old. So the kind of community that we have is a very serious community, right? There are first timers as well. There are I think 15 to 20% of our cohorts are filled with students, but 80% of folks are people who are already experienced. The kind of networking opportunities that you get within the community is also insane. And I'll show you some of these people who have actually been a part of this cohort, right? We've had Ravi, who, I don't know if he's here. Yeah, there he is. Yeah, so we've had someone called Ravi, who is the CMO at AirAsia. We've had Gautam, who is the VP of product at Disney. So these are quite senior folks. And one of the things that I like to tell people is, don't come for the curriculum, come for the community, because this is something that you will not get anywhere else. I'm sure that if you dig deeper, you will be able to find a lot of the content that we teach in the cohort online as well. I'm not going to lie about it, right? I'm not going to sit here pretending that we are the only ones who know what we teach. A lot of the information is freely available. You can go on YouTube, you can go on a lot of other free courses, and probably about 75% of the stuff that we teach, you can find it online for free, right? The reason why it's worth it's because we package it in a easily digestible way. We have the best of class faculty. But the most important factor I always tell people is the kind of community that you get to be with. Like, where else can you find people who are serious, who have made a commitment to learn applied AI for the next 6 months of their lives, and everybody is learning in sync. It's not like you are in one module and someone else is falling behind, right? Everybody is in the same level, right? Where else can you find something like this? And where else can you get access to such motivated people? And I think that's the biggest selling point of the cohort. I think that's why a lot of people choose us over any of the other folks out there. It's simply because of the kind of people that we attract to our network, the kind of people that we attract to our community. We've had a deputy commissioner from the Indian government who has been a part of the cohort. We got an opportunity with him to teach CBI raw officers on how applied AI works, which was something cool that we did with them. So it's the kind of people that really elevates this cohort more than anything else, right? And if you talk about the career placement track, we have a career accelerator track, by the way. We are placement friendly. So if you do well in the cohort, we will find a way to place you. We have placed students at EOS Labs. So Varun hires a lot of people from the cohort. Almost like 30% of the labs team is folks he has actually hired from 100x. We hire people for Emergent, which is one of the fastest vibe coding companies in the world right now. We've hired folks for ShopOS. We recently placed a student at T-Series. We recently placed a student at Yashraj Films. So quite a lot of places. And we help you secure these kind of placements. We train you in interviews, etc., etc. Now, when you're wondering who's this cohort for, we initially thought it was only going to be for devs, but eventually it turned out that quite a lot of people will find value from this, because AI is a catalyst. It's not a catalyst that is aimed at a particular domain, right? So our cohort is quite scattered. We initially thought that more than 50% is going to be devs, but we only have about 20% devs. We have 20% devs. We have about 15% product managers. We have 15% marketers. We have about 20% founders and CXOs. We have 20% students. And the remaining 5 to 10% is scattered across multiple roles. The best part is that the curriculum that we've designed it's very hands-on, right? There are very few theoretical lectures in the cohort, and most of it is very hands-on. And I'm sure that you guys have a lot of questions like, hey, I don't have a good system, so how can I make sure that I get the best out of this cohort? I'll come to that. By the way, if you guys want to try out our free courses, we have a bunch of free courses. If Meta's official course on Gen AI for marketers is done by us. OpenAI's official course on AI agents is done by us. You can go check it out on the internet. All of these are free. Just giving you a glance of what the cohort consists of. The next cohort, by the way, starts on the 13th of March. So this is your last chance to actually register. We have a few more seats left. It starts in like exactly 5 days. So next Friday, you have your first lecture, right? That's soon how this is going to start. If you miss this, the next cohort starts in probably June or July. Every cohort, we've been increasing the price steadily. So this is the cheapest it's actually ever going to be. So if you've been thinking about it, this is the right time to actually come for it, right? In terms of classes, since most of our people are working professionals, since the average age in the cohort is 32 years old, we know that you are trying to balance your work as well. So the lectures happen on Fridays and Saturdays, right? These are live lectures. Some of these are taught by me. Some of these are taught by Pranay. Some of these are taught by Siddhant, my co-founder and CTO. Some of these are taught by Tejas, who is one of the founders of EOS Labs, the company that Varun runs for services. And we have our lectures on Fridays and Saturdays between 6 to 8, right? So we plan these lectures like that. These sessions are 100% recorded. Even if you miss a lecture, say something happened, you had a late, night at work, or someone's getting married or something like that, you can just watch the recordings as well. So live lectures on Fridays and Saturdays. We have 2 sessions every week called as office hours, where you will be assigned to a mentor group. These happens on anywhere between Monday to Thursday, depending on mentor availability. And this is where you get to ask questions, clear doubts, etc., etc. These are optional, by the way, so if you don't have time, you can absolutely skip them. We also have specialized lab session on emerging technology. So if something comes out tomorrow, one of the best things that I like about the cohort is we are the most up-to-date curriculum ever. Like, for example, in this cohort, you will learn about CloudBot, right? If something releases while you are a part of the cohort, we will make sure that we will inject into it 2 weeks when the model actually comes out. So we are very specialized on that, and the reason we're able to do this so fast and so well is because we don't have 10 other courses that we're selling. We just have this one flagship thing that we perform, and all the team's energy and focus is only going into this. We are never going to have like 10 different online courses and stuff like that, right? We're only going to have this one offering. The cohort lasts about 6 months, which is 24 weeks. Towards the end, you build a capstone project. You'll build multiple capstone projects throughout the cohort. For those of you who are actually wondering, what do I do if I have a bad system? When you pay for the cohort, you're also paying for GPU cloud credits, which basically means it doesn't matter how bad your system is. All you need is a decently working system and an internet connection. You will have access to a cloud GPU that is secured just for you. You can access it anytime you want. You'll have a set number of hours, of course, because GPUs are expensive. And you don't have to pay anything extra for this. So when you purchase this, you don't have to pay for any tools, you don't have to pay for anything. You'll get access to these cloud compute credits, right? And nobody else is actually doing this right now. So you get access to state-of-the-art systems. These are actual A6000, A5000 GPUs that have like up to 48 gigabytes of VRAM and up to 8 cores. So some of the state-of-the-art systems that you'll actually get to work on, so you don't have to worry about hardware requirements at all, right? In terms of the specialization, we actually have two main tracks. Okay, we have a career track and we have So in terms of career track, we have a career accelerator track, which is more placement driven, and we have an entrepreneurship track, which is more founder driven, right? So if you're looking to start something, if you're looking to start an agency or a new company, etc., you can take the entrepreneurship track. If you're going to get placed, you can take the career accelerator track. In addition to that, we have execution paths as well, right? I saw a bunch of questions of someone telling you, asking questions on, hey, I don't know coding, can I still join this? So we have a code track and we have a no code track, right? If you're someone who has experience with coding, you'll be taught in a certain way. If you have someone who has no coding experience, you'll be taught in a different way with no code tools, right? So depending on your experience, you can actually personalize this cohort, right? So you can take a combination of code entrepreneurship, or you can take the combination of code and career accelerator, or you can take no code entrepreneurship and you can take no code career accelerator. So with the 6 iterations of this cohort, we've been able to find very personalized ways. Like when you take the cohort, I want you to feel like this was built specifically for you. And that's the whole reason why we've actually made these kind of separations as well, right? So there are multiple paths to this cohort, and all of it make sure that it is personalized according to how you are actually going to be a part of this. In terms of the curriculum, I would highly recommend go to 100xengineers.com. We have a full breakdown of it, but if I were to give you just a broad overview of what the curriculum looks like, we start off with diffusion. This is where we learn about image and video models. We get a little bit into AI filmmaking and stuff like that. Then we get into LLMs, traditional LLMs. We get into full stack engineering, which is in modern terms, it's like vibe coding. And finally, we get into AI agents. We learn all the way from fine tuning to RAG to tool use. We have a very extensive focus on Cloud Code. That's one of the primary mediums that we use in order to do all this. We have a very extensive focus on open source models, which a lot of you will be using. So it's a very in-depth cohort. There'll be a lot of projects in the middle, and you finally end with a capstone, right? One thing I'd like to say is that this cohort is not really for everyone, right? And if you get in touch with us, and if we feel that this is not the right time for you, we will let you know that. One of the things that I tell my consultation team is to never be salesy. We don't like being that. I don't think that goes with our values. And I don't think that's the kind of community and company that we are looking to actually build over here. So we've said no to a lot of people. If we think that this is not the right fit for you, we will say no to you. We're not really going to be very pushy about it, right? That being said, if you are interested in the cohort, from whatever I've said right now, you can scan this QR code and you can say, I want to join, or you can say, I want to inquire. And somebody from our team will get in touch with you today. Yes, today is the cricket finals, but we do have a team on standby, at least until the match starts. After that, the calls will start getting slower, I'm assuming. But scan this QR code, get in touch with us. We also have a special student pricing, so if you are a student, you get it for 30K lesser. If you're finding it hard to fund the money, we have loans. We also have international payments that are actually supported. So we have multiple ways of, there are multiple ways that you can actually get in touch with us. So just scan the QR code, say I want to join, and hopefully we will see you in the cohort. That being said, I'm open for like 4 to 5 questions. And after that,